Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
And you're listening to Girls Nerd Out.
Hey, everyone. For anyone new, welcome to you. And for the people returning, welcome back and thank you. We appreciate you. Obviously, Andrea is here as well.
Hello.
She has a lot to say. That's what I'll say. She's very passionate about this episode. She has a lot to say. House of the Dragon, Season 2, Episode 2, which was problematically named Rhaenyra the Cruel. We'll get into that. Propaganda. Anyway, when we start watching this episode, the first thing we see is the Red Keep going on a very chaotic lockdown because of the murder that happened in the last episode of Aegon's heir. I thought it was a little ironic because that should have been put in place when they knew it was going to be war.
I'm wondering if it's because Aegon said that they wouldn't be stupid enough to come at us if Vhagar's watching the city.
Like we said in the last episode, yeah, Vhagar, she's a big girl and she's very scary and dangerous, but I'm pretty sure she can't walk in the Red Keep. Then we see Aegon. And what is he doing, Andrea?
He's using his sword against Viserys's little city. We call it Legos. It made us both sad because he's destroying it with a sword, and it's sad because that's all Viserys wanted to do was sit there and play with his Legos.
You know what? Last episode, I told you I was surprised that I felt emotional when we got to Winterfell. When I saw him with his sword just destroying Valyria, as much as I make fun of Viserys for like being Nero and letting things happen while he plays with his Lego, basically letting Rome burn, that's sad because his dad left that, you know?
That's why I kind of call this episode bittersweet, because it was something sweet that Viserys was doing, and then he goes and destroys it. It's sad.
And then,
well, we see Alicent talking to Otto about Jaehaerys, and Otto saying we shouldn't focus on the act. We just will get the revenge that we're going to get.
Otto gives me different vibes back and forth this entire episode. I'll just let you know. There are times I'm appalled by what he says, and there are times I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, that's pretty smart. And then I'm questioning myself. I'm like, okay, am I agreeing with Otto? You said that earlier. You're like, wait a minute, did I just agree with Otto Hightower?
He made me laugh this episode.
I think the Otto we saw in this episode, I think that's actually Otto. I don't think he's annoying all the time.
No.
So I think we just didn't get any of that in season 1.
I think he's a smart person. It's just they didn't really show how smart he could actually be. He was definitely the most interesting character of the episode, I think, on the green side.
We do finally get to Helaena, which everybody wants to see how she is. She looks devastated, and she's holding, what was that? That was like was it a blanket?
I think that was clothes. It could have been a blanket because she says this was for my boy.
She's holding it and sniffing it, obviously devastated. Alicent comes in. Alicent's not my favorite. It is what it is. But her bringing up Cole, that was like so cringe because she wanted to make sure that Helaena wasn't going to tell anybody that she walked in on Alicent riding Cole, and Helaena dismisses it. It's almost like Helaena saying, I can't believe you brought that up, and no, I'm not going to tell anybody. Like, there's a lot going on right now that matters way more than that. But there's Alicent worrying about her losing power.
She said the same thing to Cole, too, which is interesting.
They're going to make the funeral a public spectacle, basically.
Yes.
What did you think about that?
I didn't like it because they're blaming Rhaenyra for something that she didn't do, and I felt like Alicent was wishy-washy because 1 minute she's, sending ravens to Rhaenyra apologizing about Luke, and then the next minute she's helping this whole fiasco to happen. I get why they're doing it, because they want to get the lords to follow Aegon, but I don't think this is the right way to do it. Small folk are... They switch their minds all the time. They're always one side, and then they change their mind when something happens. And that's already happening. They were there for Helena. They cared about Helena. They cared about this child being murdered. And then now there's a food shortage in King's Landing, and they're probably going to change their mind about Aegon now.
Otto is basically saying that he wants to use the funeral as propaganda. And yes, it comes across as very ick.
Yes.
But we do have to realize the small folk, they're wishy-washy because it depends on whose propaganda they currently have. Because, I mean, there's no TV. Even if something got spread around on paper, most of the small folk can't read. And Otto knows this. And so he basically says that he wants Alicent and Helena seen. And we get this very disturbing scene of Alicent and Helena in mourning clothing. And they're having a funeral procession through King's Landing. And there's Jaehaerys. And they have reattached his head. And he's in full display. It's very dark. But I understand why Otto wanted to do that. Because Otto has people at the front of the procession telling the small folk that this was because of Rhaenyra. It's mudslinging is what we call it in the South. When you have two candidates and when they get dirty, that's what this is. It was basically a commercial against Rhaenyra.
They called her the Pretender Queen. Yeah, they didn't mention Daemon at all.
When the cart gets stuck in the mud, the small folk are trying to get close to Helena.
She didn't want that.
I don't think anybody in that situation would want that. And she looks to be having a panic attack. And I'll be honest with you, I thought that cart was going to tilt and he was going to fall off it.
I have a question for you about that scene. So, you know, the particles that they were, or whatever they were throwing down at her. But do you think she was having a dragon dream?
I think she had a vision of things falling from the sky and then people trying to touch her. So when she saw the stuff falling from the sky, she realized, oh, great, here they come.
Yes. That makes sense why she tells Alicent that I don't want to be close to them because I don't know them. And they were trying to come at her and be close to her.
Yes. I think she knew it was coming, which further added to her panic attack. And I think that was just absolute hell for her. I can't imagine.
Very good acting.
Yes, very good. And then
we see Blood confess about Daemon.
Yeah.
And then without even being tortured, which I thought was interesting.
They brought in the materials to torture him. He's tortured in the book.
Yes. It takes 7 days. 7 days of torture before he's like, Daemon Targaryen did it.
This Blood just said it.
He's an idiot.
This Blood realized that if he didn't go ahead and say it, he was going to get tortured. And he just ends up getting hit in the head from Aegon, which it looked like it was a one-hit thing. And he was out.
He said the rat catcher. So then, you know, eventually they'll get the rat catchers. But then after the Blood situation, we see Rhaenyra, and she's being told about how the realm is blaming her for what happened to Jaehaerys.
Rhaenyra looks pale. Again, I'm giving Emma credit for their incredible acting. She's in a very deep red, beautiful gown. And she looks very pale. Like somebody that is very nervous, is probably not eating. She looks like somebody that's still in grief and somebody that's on complete edge. She is appalled that she's being blamed for the death of a child because Rhaenyra is a mom.
Her own council is blaming her, which pissed me off. And I'm like, you need a new council. You really do.
And of course, the whole time it keeps panning back to Daemon.
Mm-hmm.
over and over again. Because Rhaenyra is so confused as to why she's being blamed. She can't figure it out. She's like, well, how? Why? Why are they saying this? And why would my own council even think that I'd be capable of this?
Even Rhaenys looked at Daemon like, I know you did it.
Rhaenys is smart. Rhaenys knew from the start.
Yep.
Last episode, Rhaenys talked to Daemon, and she knew Daemon was wanting to go to King's Landing. So she knew. Rhaenyra looks at Daemon, and Daemon has a smirk.
Look, I didn't like the writing for that scene. I liked Rhaenyra's writing. I liked the council's writing, even though it was awful. I didn't like that Daemon just sat there and let his wife and queen get blamed for something he did. I didn't like that. He just sat there and let them talk to her like that. That was beyond crazy to me.
I don't think he would have smirked like that. That was an odd choice for me because she's so upset and so appalled that that happened. It made sense that people thought Daemon did it, but the smirk just didn't really make sense. He wasn't happy about what happened.
No.
He said it was a mistake. I mean, that came out of his mouth.
He was very emotional when it was just her and him talking, and they really needed that fight. They did.
That was a lot of, I want to hurt you. I don't think she necessarily meant everything she said. She knew where to hit him.
Plus, people have to take into consideration that she is still grieving. She just lost 2 kids. People that have been a part of her life forever just stole her throne. So she's going through a lot. And then having her husband do things without her command, he does something out of the scope. Even though he didn't mean to kill a child, he still killed a child.
Okay, let me ask you this. Do you think Rhaenyra wanted Aemon dead?
You know what? She probably wanted him dead, but she wanted to talk to him first. Like, ask why. Because she is a mom, and he was her baby. So I would have asked him why and then had him sent to death.
Here's something I found interesting, and I know you cannot wait to talk about Mysaria. I know you can't.
I loved her.
Adria is Mysaria's #1 fan.
Mm-hmm.
I turned it into a YouTube, but we had a live stream that was basically justice for Mysaria because she is a very interesting character. She's very intelligent. She came from absolutely nothing. And I didn't realize Rhaenyra didn't know who she was. I forgot it had been so long that it was young Rhaenyra that saw Mysaria.
Yeah, she only knew that she was with Daemon. She didn't know any particulars of why she was with Daemon.
She says, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
And then you can see the look on Rhaenyra's face, and she goes, "He said he would marry you. They said you were pregnant with his child." That's when it all comes flooding back to, oh, that's the person from the bridge with the egg. Like, it didn't hit her until then. I had to ask you about this. When Rhaenyra says, you know, who gave you that mark on your throat? I asked Andrea, I was like, am I supposed to know how that mark got there? Am I forgetting something? And Andrea, she had it. She was like, it's from a collar from being a slave. And I was like, oh my God, the slave collars. Yeah. And it made perfect sense because anybody that's worn one for an extended period of time, it's not meant to be comfortable. We know that.
And I like how Mysaria gives her this look like it's obvious what it is. The dynamic between those two is going to be fascinating in the future, I think. That's my new ship, by the way. I don't know if they'll ever get together, but I was like, hey, they have chemistry. I didn't expect this.
I do feel like Mysaria is manipulating Rhaenyra in that scene, but that's how she survived.
Yes, she is manipulating Rhaenyra, but she's also trying to get her to realize that this is how we are in this world.
Because Mysaria knows, even though Rhaenyra is the rightful heir, she's still a woman.
Yep. And in the book, she says that she is going to do everything she can to protect Rhaenyra and give her any information she needs. Does she manipulate her the whole time? Yeah, but she also is protective of her. So I'm going to be very curious as how they do that in the show.
Well, I think this is a good time to point out, though, that everyone manipulates everyone else in court life.
Yes.
Doesn't matter where. Any in history. It's all about manipulation and looking out for yourself, because who's going to look out for Massaria? Nobody.
Well, look at how Allison is with Helena. I mean, she manipulated her to go out in the public.
When Andrea did remind me that it is from a slave collar, I did happen to tell Andrea that Daenerys renamed Slaver's Bay the Bay of Dragons. Just know that I'm like that all the time. And my immediate thought was, on the show, Daenerys brings up the catapults and they think they're going to be attacked, and she just throws the slave collars. The current slaves pick them up and realize, okay, these are slave collars, so she's not here to attack us. She's here to free us. Yeah. I have to give them credit. That was a cool scene. And obviously that's where my brain went. Not really shocking.
I wanted to say, after Daemon leaves, Baela comes in and she tells Baela that I want you to go to King's Landing, but stay a distance away. And I know you said that seemed against her character. I don't understand why she's sending a child, but I will say this. It makes sense why she said no to Jace, because Jace is still grieving Luke, and we have no idea what Jace would do in King's Landing if he saw Aemond.
So you're saying she picked the more level-headed person?
Yes. Because Jace does say to Baela that he misses Luke. Like, he is still grieving.
Okay, devil's advocate, I'm going to tell you what other people are going to say. They're going to say, so she sends a second child instead of going herself. That's what's going to be said.
Well, I don't think they'd want the queen to go by herself.
They will reply to that and say, well, she left on her own before. She was gone for a long time. That's what people will say. Devil's advocate right there.
If Rhaenyra was a man, nobody would be questioning her. For book-wise, he's almost 15. Baela is almost 15. So in this world, they're considered adults.
Considering Vhagar is the threat at King's Landing, and Vhagar was the reason her child is gone, I just don't see taking that risk with another family member. I don't know why she would want to send Baela at all, but at the same time, I can see the Jace situation. Yes, people are going to complain about it either way, but in my opinion, I understand it. I will say this. Rhaenyra is starting to look like what a lot of people have said, like she's not doing anything. She just sends other people. And that is going to be a theme, I think, from now on. And there is a rumor that we may see her fight on Syrax, but in the book, that is something that people are incredibly critical about.
But isn't it still taking action if you're sending people to do it? You don't have to be a fighter to be a ruler. I don't consider somebody a good ruler just because they fight.
She's in a tough spot because she doesn't have adult dragon riders.
Yes.
But I will say this on record, I don't think she should have sent Baela. I think either don't send anybody, send a ship, or go yourself.
Do I agree with her what she did? No, but I understand it. I do.
After Rhaenyra and Daemon have a fight, Daemon leaves and he passes Baela in the hall, and you can tell Baela is slowing down and she kind of has a smile on her face thinking that they'll have small talk, and Daemon just stares at her and walks past. What do you think about that whole scene and the following scene when Baela talks to Jace?
He just glares at her, and I didn't like that. I was so upset with that. And there must be context that we're missing.
Andrea and I talked about context, and we actually came up with a pretty decent theory that what we saw in the hall may have been Daemon looking at Baela and trying to warn her that something had just occurred, and she was walking into a not so calm Rhaenyra. Like, everybody's been in that situation where one parent's like, they're in a mood. I think there's a possibility it could have been that.
And then she has a conversation with Jace, and she's kind of complaining about him. And then she asks what he remembered of his father. I loved that he said that Laenor taught them to fish and he sung sea shanties with them. And then she asked him about Harwin. He admits to them both being his dad. I was kind of upset because he doesn't mention Daemon.
And that, from our point of view, is Bela asking, hey, what does having a good dad feel like?
That made me cry.
It also gave us a glimpse of the past and how Rhaenyra, Laenor, and Harwin, they had it worked out. And I think in a lot of ways that's beautiful.
So next that we see that I thought was huge was Kristen Cole talking to Arik Cargill.
He basically gaslights somebody into becoming an assassin.
Arik is a very loyal Kingsguard, and so is his brother. And I'm just sitting here like, are you kidding me? You are not pure at all. At all.
Kristen Cole is disgusting. And I think there's two reasons that he has that conversation with Arik. One is that he harbors some sort of guilt because what he was doing when that happened. I also think his hate for Rhaenyra is the other part.
To the point that he wants her dead.
People have said that you can't hate someone that much unless you loved them at some point. I don't know if that's exactly right. Like, you and I had that conversation. I was like, how many times have you known somebody and just been like, nah, I don't really like that person. And then you just go on about your business and you may not even think of that person ever again. It takes a lot to have that much vitriol for that long. How about this, though? Otto Hightower speaking up for the small folk.
I was shocked. I hate Otto Hightower a lot. I don't like him. I think he's a terrible person. But that scene with him was perfect. It was very good acting. Reese is a really good actor. It was just so good.
Look, I've been calling Otto Hightower Timu Tywin for a while. Till this episode. He jumps Aegon's ass because he's like, there are mothers and widows crying outside. Not only did you kill all the rat catchers, you hung them out there for everyone to see. He's been trying to do PR for Aegon this whole time. Aegon's like, they're going to see me as weak. And Otto's like, they already do. I was right about Aemond. I knew that he had some buried guilt. And he is seen in a brothel. She's the same one from the first season that he was with, I think.
The one that assaulted him is what people are saying, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. Aemond goes to her. That scene could be very confusing to people that don't understand grief and trauma. She tries to initiate with him, and he says no. And he immediately puts his head in her lap, and it is very clear that he's there for maternal comfort as much as gratification. Because Alicent wasn't, and never will be a good mother at all.
Did you notice how many times she's taken a bath in the last 2 episodes? She is trying to cleanse her sins.
I thought that they would start showing her with like red patches where she's just scrubbed it raw. Also, good point, Andrea. She doesn't want anybody around when she's scrubbing herself. She sends all her handmaids away.
Which is very interesting.
Honey, if you could wash away sin in a bathtub, wouldn't that be great?
She's washing away the sin and continuing the sin.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think Alicent keeps initiating sexual activity with Kristen Cole? Why do you think she keeps doing it?
The way that she looks at him and the way that he looks at her is completely different, in my opinion. When he talks to Arik and plans an assassin, that is because he's getting power from sleeping with the queen.
The same as Larys got power from making her show her feet.
Exactly. So she is being used by him, but her, I don't think she's using him at all. I think she loves him.
The brothers. I know this is a very passionate part of the story for you.
People are misunderstanding that scene, and it's kind of pissing me off.
Go ahead, fix it.
So Arik is there to assassinate Rhaenyra. He acts like his twin. He even talks to the guards and acts like Eric. So when he gets into the room, he tries to kill her. Well, Sir Eric realizes something weird is going on. So he realizes it and goes in there and tries to stop him. And he is there to protect Rhaenyra. That is not a contest here. Like, he is there to protect her. He loves his queen. He's there for her. But the fight is not about Rhaenyra. The fight is not about Aegon. The fight is because they love each other. I mean, if you listen to Arik when he is trying to kill his brother, he says, you separated us, but I still love you, brother. It's very clear to anyone that he is talking about him leaving him. And that's probably never happened before because, you know, they're twins. They were born together. They grew up together. They joined the King's Guard together. So this fight is nothing to do with Rhaenyra. People are confused. Why would you just fall on your own sword? I think it's because he felt so much grief. He wants Rhaenyra to forgive him. And honestly, Rhaenyra would have never thought ill of him at all. She loved him, and, you know, we can see the love. The fight literally was just about those two, and it's very sad.
It is very sad, and he apologizes to Rhaenyra because he's taken an oath to always protect her, and he's going to take his own life. He falls on his sword because he knows he cannot live with the grief of killing his twin brother. But before he does it, he apologizes to her because he won't be there to protect her. My God.
He loves her so much, and that killed me.
That was just...
It's bringing tears to me right now. That was the best scene I have ever seen between siblings. And it also, nobody wins in this. Nobody does. Yes, people say the Greens won, but I don't think they did. I don't think anybody won.
I think it's symbolism. Because the writers use these identical twins to reflect the family at war. The Targaryens, who are identical in name, yet are fighting each other. I think it's symbolism.
We should mention Hugh Hammer for just a second.
Yeah.
So Hugh Hammer is in this episode, and his wife was talking about how she had to spend a lot of money on chicken just to put in their pot. And she talks about how the small folk are hungry and people are hoarding food because there's shortages. And he says that the king is going to relieve them somewhat. And she's like, when? And he didn't have an answer. And that killed me because I'm like, they're not going to get an answer. They're not going to get anything now because of two small folk killing a child. That means that all small folk can go to hell, basically. And I don't think Aegon is going to care about them. Yes, he said that they are their supporters. They wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the small folk. But Hugh Hammer is a small folk. And I think this is what's going to cause him to go to Rhaenyra.
I wondered about that, and I think you're right. I also remembered something else.
Yes.
Adam and Alan.
Yes.
They are Corlys's.
Yes.
I haven't gotten confirmation on my prediction that he's shaving his head because he would have white hair. But you were right because you said if Adam shows up and looks like Rhaenyra, and guess what? He does. He does.
He's really good. He's a good-looking man. Oh my gosh. I think Sea Smoke was flying around him to check him out.
I think so too. And I'm glad you brought that up because I have had issue because everyone knows I talk about the Dragon Bond.
Yes.
Rhaenyra isn't dead. So Sea Smoke is a problem. And I didn't want them to disregard the Dragon Bond. Like, just because you're in a different country, it's severed. Yeah. I do like this. I will say this. Since he resembles Rhaenyra, and they're technically brothers.
Yeah.
I like that. They did as much as they could to respect the Dragon Bond. I definitely agree with you. I think Sea Smoke felt something.
I think it was already a bond, to be honest. That's my theory.
I thought maybe Sea Smoke was going to come back and we were going to see the Dragon Bond, so I got really excited and squealed. But I think you're right. I think that was the beginning.
Yes.
He has no idea. He probably just felt something. He's like, wait, what? I mean, think about it. He's like, he found a crab, and then all of a sudden, hold on, wait a minute. I feel very strong to this dragon that's flying over me, and I have no idea why. Bless his heart. Can you imagine?
The acting was so good, and he didn't even say anything.
It was good, and I like the fact that he looks like Rhaenyra, and that makes sense for Sea Smoke, so I'm going to give them credit on that.
I wonder what the other dragon was in the distance. So now I'm like curious because I'm like, what was that dragon over there? Because it's not Caraxes, maybe it's Syrax, but there are other dragons on Dragonstone.
I've seen people say every dragon that exists, basically. Everybody thinks it's a different dragon.
It could be Silverwing, because we haven't seen Silverwing yet. It could be Vermithor, although probably Vermithor is still hiding.
I don't think it's Vermi, because he'd be big.
And that was a tinier dragon, but it still looked really cool, just seeing two dragons in the air.
Hold on. I think we're meant to think that that's Bela going to King's Landing.
I would rate this episode a 9, only because I wasn't a fan of the end. I didn't care for another scene with Alicent and Cole sleeping together. I didn't like how Daemon and Rhaenyra were written, but I still loved the episode. It was very good.
That last scene with Alicent and Cole, I think that's the scene that was so explicit that it was cut. Look, at least they cut it. At least we didn't have to see, because I think that was the one that Olivia said was, messy?
Mm-hmm.
Look, I'm with you. I've seen them enough.
We don't even get Daemon and Rhaenyra. We get one little thing where he touches her face. I loved that. I loved how he was rubbing her face, and it looked like he was going to kiss her, and that didn't happen. I was like, can we not? You guys are the blood of the dragon. Like, I need to see you throwing each other against walls. I need to see you going on the table and having... that's just not what I got. It's fine. I think... the writer who wrote this episode likes them more than Daemon and Rhaenyra, and that really upsets me, and you should not treat your characters like that, but it is what it is.
I don't know if you guys have figured this out. That was sarcasm. Okay, here, this is how I'll say it. Find you somebody that looks at you like Andrea looks at Rhaenyra and Daemon. That's what you need to do. If you're looking for a soulmate, if they don't look at you the way Andrea looks at Daemon and Rhaenyra, then that's not for you. It's not good enough. It's not good enough.
Look at the way Daemon looks at Rhaenyra. You know that they have to have really good sex, because the way that they talk to each other in that scene, there is no way they don't have really good sex. I'm just saying.
I mean, I would assume so. I've never thought any different.
That is how I fight with a certain somebody, so yes.
Well, there you go. Andrea goes for Rhaenyra and Daemon like I go for Daenerys.
Yes.
But the benefit for me is that most of the fighting that I had to do, it's died down immensely, because obviously it ended in 2019. So most of the people that said horribly negative things about Daenerys just because a couple of writers wanted to get to Star Wars, most of those people have picked a side, either green or black, and they're over there fighting. So it's like Andrea's in the trenches, and I'm a bit out of the trenches, finally. It's just interesting to watch, because it's so similar. People
are really misunderstanding the Cargill fight, and people are really misunderstanding Daemon. I don't care how he was written in this episode. I mean, I do, but it's still misunderstood. Tell me you know nothing about Daemon Targaryen without telling me. That's how I'm saying it now, because clearly they're not getting it.
Just relatable. That's all I can say. Next episode.
Yes.
Okay. Harrenhal.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to it.
And Daemon, he says, bend the knee to your queen or your house gets burned. That's my prediction. In the show, Daemon is going to take Harrenhal and have the Blackwoods side with him. The Riverland lords are going to side with him, and he will not kill a single person. And they will bend the knee to him because, hello, it's a big, giant noodle dragon, and he is beautiful, and I love him, and I still feel like he looks a little small in this season, and I'm not happy with it. And same with Cyrax. Cyrax looks smaller than she's supposed to be. She should be bigger.
I do think the continuity with Cyrax has been a hot mess. She's big, she's small. Her mouth gets bigger and smaller. The shape of her head changes. There has not been continuity with Cyrax. There's been more continuity with Caraxes, but you're right. When he flies off and they're going to Harrenhal, Caraxes looks very thin and small, but I have a feeling when he gets to Harrenhal, he's going to be a big boy again. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but you're right. The continuity with those specifically, those dragons. Well, actually, Andrea, when Daemon sings to Vermithor in season 1, Vermithor looks very different from that. And we do have that one little scene, which I'm very much looking forward to, where Rhaenyra is standing in front of Vermithor. Vermithor looks bigger and different and spikier there. So I'm going to say there is an issue with some dragon continuity.
I mean, in the trailer, you see Daemon with Caraxes at night in the water, when it's pouring rain outside, and he's flying around. It looks like Harrenhal. Obviously, this is Harrenhal. Why does he look bigger there than before they leave?
If you think about it, in Game of Thrones, 3 dragons, 2, we did not see nearly enough. All 3 are the same shape. And only one of them is continuously growing Drogon. So that's the one that they're looking for size continuity. This one, there's multiple dragons. It's CGI. I just think it's something that's going to get better. So next episode, I would assume there's a clip where we think Baela is going after Cole. There's a possibility that could be next episode because she is going to be out on her dragon.
It could be next episode, but I'm thinking she's going to go to Rook's Rest with Rhaenys, so it might be episode 4.
Wait a minute. I'm going to make a prediction. I could be wrong. All right, here's mine. Here's my prediction for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and this actually ties in with something else. Okay. This whole time I've been trying to figure out why Rhaenyra sent Baela. It's because Baela is going to see something and she's going to go after Cole next episode. I could be wrong. There's just my prediction.
Yes. Okay, I'm on board with that one.
That's my big prediction for next week is Rhaenyra sends Baela because you and I just said Baela is more level-headed right now.
Jace, yeah.
But that's an assumption.
Yes.
So when she sees Cole, I think the level-headed might become hot-headed. There's my prediction. Do you have any big predictions?
Besides Hugh Hammer switching sides, I think that's pretty big. I know some people probably aren't really paying attention to him much, but I am because I like the dragon seeds and he's so different from the book already. I think my biggest prediction is Daemon's not going to kill anybody.
That's going to be very different from future scenes. To not spoil everything, it doesn't always go over that easy.
Do you think we're going to see Darren this season or next season?
What we're talking about is Otto brings up Darren for the first time. By the way, Alicent has another kid you didn't know about.
She looked surprised too. Yeah, she's like, what kid?
I don't think she knew. She's a great mom, hell of a mom there. I think we're going to see him this season, or I don't think he would have been brought up. We might see some more sea smoke.
Episode 8 is probably when he will, 8 or 7 is when he will join, he will bond with Sea Smoke.
Can't wait to see it. Can't wait. You know what? I didn't think there was any way they would be able to have Laenor still alive and Sea Smoke bond with somebody. But look, I will admit when I'm wrong, I was wrong. They did that well. They really did. And you know, I'm funny about my dragon stuff. If you're going to do it, that was the perfect way. And I want to give them credit.
And he's very good looking. Oh my God. I can't get over how good looking he is.
And that's a nice looking dragon.
Sea Smoke is a very stunningly beautiful dragon.
I noticed that Sea Smoke in season 1 has an underbite.
Yes.
And I'm very fond of that, and I hope that that continues because it's adorable. Just adorable. I love that. So that is us talking about this episode. Okay, let me rate, because you rated 9 out of 10.
Yes. What did you rate this episode?
Man, it's nerdy. There wasn't a lot of dragon in this episode. There's great acting. I was very happy to see Sea Smoke. I was very happy to see Caraxes. I was very happy to hear Rhaenys talk about Melees. Lack of dragon, and too much Cole, Alicent, whatever. Like, I can just rate it in scales. So, 6.85 scales out of 10. Well, I think this was great.
Yeah, I do too.
A lot of fun. Thank you guys for listening. And I'm just really thankful that people are enjoying us nerding out. And I look forward to the next episode.
It'll probably be called Revenge is Bittersweet.
I will get more dragon next episode, so I'll be happy.
I'm ready for more dragons as well.
Yeah, that's my thing. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next Thursday.
Thank you. Hey, this is Andrea.
And this is Amanda.
And you just listened to
Girls Nerd Out.